I'm going to say something that might make some leaders uncomfortable. Work is not working. And in fact, it's depleting the very human capacity upon which it depends. And that's not because managers are ill intended or because employees are fragile. It's because we've built a system that's running the wrong algorithm. So before I was a CEO and before I was a chief HR officer, I advised, boards and executive teams on talent strategy. And before that, I was a licensed clinical social worker. I worked as a therapist for individuals and families. And what you may not know about social work is that its central philosophy revolves around the person in the environment and systems theory. So, the perspective that you can only know the individual if you know the systems they inhabit. Which means this: if a person is struggling, you don't first ask, what's wrong with this person? You ask, what's going on in their environment? So after I was a social worker, I went into human resources because I found that I was increasingly interested in one question. And that is, what happens to the human being inside of work? Because every workplace is an ecosystem and every workplace is running an algorithm. And as an HR executive, my job was to align people and culture strategy to the overarching business objectives. And to do that, I had to understand the underlying organizational algorithm. And what I found often was that we were optimizing for efficiency, for compliance, for uniformity. We were drawing boxes on organizational charts and determining spans of control and writing job descriptions. And then we were trying to retrofit people into those boxes, human shaped pegs into literal square holes. And we wrote policies that defended against the worst case scenario. And all of this made sense in the world it was designed for. And those are the military and factory systems that relied on hierarchy and predictability and consistency. But that's not the world we live in now. And so work is having a bit of a midlife crisis. We are in an increasingly intellectual economy. AI is transforming the way that work is getting done on a daily basis. Workplaces are hybrid now. People are free agent minded. So they come into the workplace with their own ambitions and desires and interests and strengths and weaknesses. And their motivations vary radically from person to person. And so we haven't yet adapted in the workplace to this new reality. But outside of work, the algorithms get that differentiation. So your newsfeed adapts to you, your playlist knows all of your preferences, your shopping experience already anticipates every whim. Even your healthcare is becoming more precision based around your genetic and risk profile. And they're getting smarter and smarter about you all the time and learning how to serve you better. But then we walk into work and the algorithm shifts. Same job descriptions, same performance grids, same career paths, same incentives. We flatten human variation, which is detrimental not only to organizations, but also to the humans within them. A recent Gallup report showed that globally, employee engagement sits at 21%. So, employee engagement is the measure of how connected and committed people are to their workplace. So they look at things like discretionary effort, and that's the propensity to go above and beyond for your employer. They look at intent to stay. What is your retention risk? Do you intend to stay, or do you intend to leave your employer? So that's pretty big. Those are pretty big numbers, right? So 21% globally employees engaged, and that spells big trouble for organizations and humans alike. So, for organizations, disengaged employees cost trillions. And for the humans, if you're unhappy at work, that's probably bleeding into every facet of your life. Further, SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, found that 44% of employees are burned out. Those numbers are staggering. And that means that we have people who are walking around the workplace, we used to call it retired while walking around, people who are not engaged, who are phoning it in on a regular basis. And this model that we have doesn't just exhaust our average steady performers, it also constrains our exceptional ones. So, the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule, would suggest that a minority of people drive the majority of results. And yet, inside of our organizations, again, we flatten the human variation and we write policies that are made to defend against the lowest common denominator. So, for performance and bad behavior, but never to unleash potential. So we maximize control, but that depletes our human capacity. And so if an environment consistently depletes its primary resource, that environment needs to be redesigned. And we're at a really exciting juncture right now for this to happen. We have more data about the people in our organizations than we've ever had. Over the course of my HR career, I watched organizations build more and more robust people analytics functions. There are organizations who have entire teams and departments dedicated to understanding the people within their organizations. And so data is a great enabler. AI is only going to make this a stronger capability for every single organization. We'll know more about engagement patterns and burnout risk and retention risk and collaboration dynamics and strengths and weaknesses, performance trends. We'll have all of this information, and the leaders in the organizations who leverage the data not for higher control mechanisms, but to get really smart about their people will be the ones who thrive in this next era. And that's going to require three fundamental shifts. We have to start designing organizations around people and not just jobs. For decades, we've drawn those boxes and we've tried to put people in them. But a people first organizational design means asking, where does the value truly concentrate within this organization? Where do the strengths exist within this system, individually and collectively? And how do we structure and organize ourselves so that we can amplify those strengths? How do we leverage that human capability and harness it so that we can create more personalized pathways to performance and to experience so that everyone in the organization is working at their highest and best use to the organization? My healthcare friends would call this working at the top of their license. The second thing we have to do is make sure that our managers are enabled to be architects of experience. The managers in organizations are the UX designers of the employee experience. Every single day, they are setting the vibe for work. They're deciding how energy flows, what work is recognized, what's rewarded. They are the ones who are eliciting the best from their people. All of us know an employee who had high potential, high performance, and we saw it degrade when they were under a manager who was inexperienced or neglectful. And conversely, we've seen struggling employees blossom under a manager who was interested in their strengths, cultivated them, and then created the conditions where they could be successful. Context changes performance. And we have to enable the managers to be able to be the architects of the experience for their employees. Managers are responsible for upwards of 70% of employee engagement and well-being. And yet, they are woefully underprepared to take on that role. And finally, in order to enable all of this, we have to build flexibility into the system itself. And that means in our policies, in our processes, our incentives, our rewards, the way we design work, in every aspect, we have to have more flexibility. That could be role scope, work arrangements, incentive plans, and the challenge for organizations. And I say this as a human resources professional who had to be a guardian of fairness. Fairness does not mean identical. People have different starting points, they have different ceilings, they have different needs outside of the workplace and inside of the workplace. And we need to be able to look at each of those individuals and again help elevate them so that they are working at their highest and best use for the organizations. We're at a really important time. Work is not simply an economic system. It is first and foremost a human environment. We have an opportunity to convert human variation to strategic advantage. In the world we live in where rote tasks are going away, what begins to have outsized importance is human ingenuity, innovation, creativity, critical thinking. And so building organizations that are aligned to individual stations, it's stewarding energy for our employees, and aligning all of our jobs and work around the superpowers of the people in our organization. The leaders and the organizations who are able to harness this power will win the next era, because it's about creating conditions where people can do the best work of their lives and people can live their best lives while doing the work. Thank you.